The night was silent until the shriek tore through the air like glass shattering. Detective Michael Harris said, "God, not again." He froze as his flashlight beam caught crimson stains splattered across the peeling wallpaper. Sarah Mitchell said, "Michael, what the hell is that?" Her voice trembled as the metallic scent of blood filled the hallway. The walls whispered secrets, and the message scrawled in uneven red letters seemed to pulse with menace. Michael whispered, "It's a warning, Sarah." His heart pounded like a drum echoing through the hollow house. The flicker of the dying bulb above them seemed like a cruel rhythm, each flash carving shadows across their faces. Sarah swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. The sight of the overturned chair and a half-empty glass on the table made her whisper, "Someone was here minutes ago." The dread settled heavier with every passing breath, making the silence unbearable. Michael stepped into the living room, his boots crunching on broken glass. He said, "It's fresh, Sarah. Someone left in a hurry." Sarah replied, "Why would they leave the glass, the drink, everything?" Her words trembled like thin glass about to shatter. The smell of smoke still lingered, as if a cigarette had been abandoned seconds earlier. Michael's gaze swept across the room, noting the uneven scatter of belongings. A half-open drawer, a phone with no battery, photographs scattered across the carpet. Sarah bent down, her hand hovering over one photo, whispering, "She was here. This was Emily's last night alive." Michael clenched his jaw, muttering, "Then the killer wanted us to see this." The silence screamed louder than any voice, pulling them deeper into a story written in blood and lies. The sound of footsteps outside froze them both. Michael raised a hand, signaling silence. He whispered, "We're not alone." Sarah's breath quickened, her eyes darting toward the window. The creak of the wooden porch echoed like a countdown. Michael moved toward the door, his gun steady but his pulse rapid. Sarah said, "Don't, Michael. What if it's him?" Fear was etched in her every word. He inhaled deeply, muttering, "If it is, then we've already lost." The doorknob rattled, faint but deliberate, before stopping suddenly. Silence returned, heavier than before, leaving them gasping in dread. The moment passed, but their nerves remained shredded, each beat of silence threatening to break into violence. Michael opened the door with sudden force, but the porch was empty. The night air carried only the faint sound of distant dogs barking. Sarah whispered, "He's watching us." Michael scanned the yard, eyes narrowing at shifting tree shadows under the streetlight. He said, "He wants us afraid. That's the game." The old wooden boards beneath them creaked like bones snapping with every step. Sarah's hand gripped her coat tighter, her gaze flicking to every dark corner. The house seemed alive, feeding off their fear, every gust of wind turning ordinary objects into threats. Michael muttered, "We're chasing a ghost that's always one step ahead." But even as he spoke, the crunch of gravel behind the shed betrayed the lie of emptiness. Michael turned toward the shed, each step deliberate, the gravel crunch echoing like thunder. Sarah whispered urgently, "Michael, stop, this isn't safe." He ignored her, eyes locked on the rusted shed door. The padlock hung broken, swaying lightly in the night wind. Michael said, "He's inside." His voice was flat, drained of emotion. Sarah's breath caught, her hand trembling as she grabbed his arm, whispering, "Then he wants us here." Michael brushed her hand away, pushing forward with a cold determination. The silence cracked as the shed door groaned open, revealing only pitch black within. Sarah's whisper lingered in the dark, "God help us, Michael. We've stepped right into his trap." The morning light cut through the blinds of Michael's cramped office, dust swirling in golden streaks. He sat slouched at his desk, files scattered around him. Michael muttered, "She deserves the truth, no matter what it costs me." His eyes lingered on a photograph of Emily Mitchell, the victim, smiling with youthful innocence. Sarah stood across the desk, her voice breaking as she said, "Michael, I can't let her be another cold case." Her trembling fingers pressed against the photo, as if touching Emily's face could bring her back. Michael leaned forward, haunted eyes narrowing. "I've carried demons for years, Sarah. But this one feels personal. The silence stretched between them like a wound neither could close. For Michael, the case was more than just duty. It was redemption clawing at the edges of his weary soul. The camera lingered on Emily Mitchell's bedroom, untouched since the night she vanished. Sarah whispered. She hated leaving her room messy. "This isn't right." Her voice cracked as she picked up a diary left open on the bed. Michael watched her with guarded eyes, murmuring, "Rooms like this speak louder than suspects." The pale pink walls were adorned with posters of singers. A life interrupted mid-breath. A faint perfume still lingered, carrying the ghost of her presence. Sarah flipped the diary page, her hands shaking, muttering. She was scared, Michael. She wrote that someone was watching her. Michael tightened his jaw, replying, "Then we're already hunting a predator who thought she belonged to him." The room fell silent, but the truth screamed in every detail they uncovered. Later that afternoon, Sarah and Michael sat across from Emily's father, Richard Mitchell. His hands shook as he lit a cigarette, eyes hollow. "Richard said she called me that night, Michael. She said someone was outside." His voice cracked under the weight of guilt. Sarah's eyes welled with tears as she whispered, "Why didn't you tell us before?" Richard exhaled smoke, staring at the floor. "Because I thought she was being dramatic, and now she's gone." Michael leaned forward, voice sharp with urgency. "Every detail matters, Richard. Every damn second counts." The man buried his face in his hands, shoulders trembling as the silence carried his regret. For Sarah, the confession was a dagger twisting deeper, proof that Emily's cries for help were real, and they had all failed her. The police station bustled with chatter, but inside the interrogation room, silence reigned. Michael stared across the table at Chief Daniel Roberts, his superior with steely eyes. The chief said, "You're too close to this, Harris. Step back before you burn yourself out." Michael's jaw clenched, his voice low. "If I step back, she'll just be another file in the cabinet." Sarah, seated behind Michael, broke in. "We can't abandon her, sir. Not when we're this close." Roberts sighed heavily, tapping his pen against the folder. "We've got procedure, Harris, and I don't like you going rogue." Michael's eyes darkened, his words edged with fury. "Then consider this rogue justice. I'll carry it alone if I must." The tension filled the room, a battle between justice and authority. Night fell as Michael and Sarah walked outside the station, city lights flickering against the dark sky. Sarah said softly, "Michael, you can't keep carrying all this alone." Her voice wavered with exhaustion. Michael lit a cigarette, his hands trembling slightly. "I don't know how to stop," he admitted. His eyes looked worn, shadows underlining sleepless nights. Sarah stepped closer, her voice filled with quiet strength. "Then let me carry some of it with you. Emily was my sister. I won't quit." Michael looked at her, searching for defiance in her gaze. Instead, he found steel, unyielding. He exhaled smoke into the night, whispering, "Then we fight this together." For the first time their battle felt shared, the weight lighter, though the road ahead promised only darkness. The evidence bag lay heavy in Michael's hand as he studied the blood-stained scarf found near the riverbank. He muttered, "This isn't random, Sarah. Someone planted it." Sarah leaned closer, whispering, "But why leave it where we'd find it?" The river hissed below them, black water reflecting shards of moonlight like broken glass. Michael's eyes narrowed, the weight of unanswered questions tightening around him. He said, "He wants to control the story, guide us down his path." Sarah's breath quickened as she glanced at the scarf, trembling. "Then we're chasing his game, not his mistakes." Michael dropped the bag into his coat pocket, muttering, "Every game has an end, Sarah. And when it comes, we'll be face to face with him." The cold air clung to them, heavy with dread. The next morning, Michael questioned a nervous neighbor, Daniel White, whose shifting eyes betrayed more than his words. Michael asked firmly, "What did you see that night?" Daniel fidgeted, stammering, I heard shouting, maybe a struggle, but I didn't want trouble." Sarah's voice sharpened, "You saw more than you're admitting." The man's gaze darted toward his hands, clenched tight in his lap. Michael leaned forward, his voice low. You think silence will save you? It won't. It'll bury you alongside her. Daniel's lips quivered as he muttered, he warned me, said if I talked, I'd be next. The room grew heavier, every word dripping with paranoia. Sarah whispered, then you've already given him power. Michael's jaw clenched, his anger simmering. And I won't let him keep it. That night, they met with Laura Stevens, the reluctant informant. Her hood was pulled low as she whispered, I can't be seen with you. He has people watching. Michael's voice was steady. If you know something, it could save lives. Laura's hands trembled as she clutched a folded paper. Emily told me she was being followed. She thought it was just paranoia, but I saw him once. Tall, sharp eyes, always in shadows. Sarah's breath caught as she whispered, why didn't you tell the police? Laura shook her head, eyes brimming with fear. Because he said my blood would paint the walls if I ever opened my mouth. Michael reached for the note, voice like steel. Then tonight, the silence ends. The fear in Laura's eyes mirrored the danger closing in on them. Alone later, Michael sat in his office, staring at the note Laura had given him. His hand shook as he read Emily's words. He's closer than they think. His chest tightened, haunted by memories of another case that had ended in failure. He whispered, not again. I won't fail this time. The shadows on the wall seemed to taunt him, stretching longer as the desk lamp flickered. A bottle of whiskey sat untouched, a silent temptation. Sarah entered quietly, her voice soft. Michael, you can't drown yourself in ghosts. He didn't look up, his voice gravelly. You don't know what it's like to carry their screams. Sarah stepped closer, her hand brushing his shoulder. Then let me carry some. The note trembled in his hand, as though it carried the weight of both their souls. Meanwhile, the antagonist's presence emerged from the shadows. In a distant, smoke-filled bar, a man in his 40s sat alone, eyes cold and calculating. His name was Victor Kane, the hidden puppeteer. He stirred his drink slowly, watching the patrons without expression. A faint smile crossed his lips as he muttered, they're closer than they realize, but not close enough. His reflection in the glass revealed eyes devoid of remorse, sharp and unrelenting. The bartender asked casually, another round? Victor's smile widened, voice chilling. No, the night is young and so is the hunt. Around him laughter echoed, but he remained detached, the predator studying his prey. The air thickened with menace, every second carrying the weight of his sinister patience. Michael slammed the file onto the desk, his frustration spilling over. He growled. The evidence keeps pointing at Victor, but half of it feels planted. Sarah leaned forward, her voice sharp. Then someone inside wants him protected. Michael's eyes narrowed, the bitter taste of betrayal lingering in his throat. We've got a rat in this case, he muttered. The words felt heavy, like a crack in the foundation of everything he trusted. Sarah's hands tightened around the chair, her whisper trembling. If that's true, Michael, then we're not just fighting him, we're fighting the system. His stare hardened. Then the system can burn if it means justice. The room fell into a silence so suffocating, it felt like another secret pressing down on them. Inside the chief's office, the confrontation boiled. Chief Roberts glared, his voice thunderous. You're crossing lines, Harris. Michael stood tall, defiant. Those lines are drawn in blood, and I won't ignore them. Sarah's voice cut through. Urgent, he's protecting someone, Michael. He won't admit it. Roberts slammed his fist against the desk, the echo shaking the room. You've got no proof, just obsession. Michael leaned in, his voice cold. Proof is coming, Chief, and when it does, it'll bury you if you're in my way. The tension between them grew thick, a collision of power, pride and secrets ready to shatter everything they stood on. In the dim safety of a parking garage, Laura met them again, trembling. Her voice cracked. He knows I talked. He left a note on my car. Michael's jaw tightened as he snatched the crumpled paper. The words were scrawled in blood-red ink. Silence is survival. Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. He's watching her every move. Laura's eyes darted around, paranoia clinging to her like a second skin. Michael's voice was low but steady. Then he's closer than we thought. We need to move her somewhere safe. Laura clutched his arm, desperate. There is no safe. He always finds me. The cold concrete echoed with her words, every shadow a possible threat lurking just out of reach. Across town, Victor Kane sat at a poker table, his calm exterior masking the storm beneath. He shuffled the deck with calculated precision, his voice low. They think they're closing in, but they're blind to what's right in front of them. A younger man at the table asked nervously, "Boss, you sure they won't trace it back?" Victor's gaze was sharp, his faint smile cold. "Control the game, and you control the players." He placed his cards down, every gesture deliberate, every move orchestrated. His shadow loomed longer than his presence, pulling strings they couldn't yet see. In his silence lay the power of a man who knew exactly how much time he had left to toy with them. Back at the station, Michael buried his head in the files, frustration gnawing at him. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "You're losing yourself in this, Michael." He looked up, eyes hollow. "Every lead feels like a trap. Every witness hides half the truth." The room's silence thickened with doubt, his words pressing like stones. Sarah whispered, "Then trust me. We'll push through this darkness together." Michael's voice was broken but resolute. "I can't shake the feeling he's always one step ahead, waiting for us to stumble." Clock ticked loudly, each second another reminder of how far they still were from the truth, and how close Victor was to winning. The note revealed by Laura sent shockwaves through Michael. He read aloud. Emily knew her killer. She trusted him. His voice trembled with rage. Sarah's eyes widened, her whisper breaking. "God, it's someone close." The air in the cramped office thickened as realization clawed at them. Michael slammed his fist against the desk, growling. Victor didn't act alone. He had help from inside her circle. Sarah's breath caught, her trembling hand clutching Emily's diary. Her best friend. She wrote about secrets she couldn't share. The truth struck like lightning. Betrayal wasn't distant, it was intimate. Michael muttered, voice sharp as steel, the enemy was at her side all along. Silence suffocated the room as trust dissolved into suspicion. Later, Sarah confronted Emily's closest friend, Melissa Turner. Melissa's eyes darted nervously as Sarah demanded, "Why did you tell us about the threats?" Melissa stammered, "Because I thought he'd kill me too." Michael's gaze burned into her. "Emily died because silence bought you safety." Melissa's voice cracked. "I loved her like a sister. He made me swear to keep quiet." Sarah's tears welled as betrayal carved its wound deeper. "You could have saved her." Melissa shook her head violently, whispering no one could. He was already inside. The revelation struck cold. The circle of trust Emily relied on had been poisoned from the start. Michael spread photographs across the table, his hand pausing on one image, Emily smiling beside Victor Kane. His jaw tightened. They knew each other. Sarah gasped, stepping closer. No, she would never. But the truth was undeniable. The victim and the predator were connected. Michael's voice was bitter. He wasn't stalking her from the shadows, he was welcomed into her life. Sarah whispered, tears streaming. She trusted him, and he killed her. The revelation twisted the case into something darker. Michael muttered, he manipulated her, and now he's manipulating us. The walls felt as though they closed in, suffocating them under the weight of truth. At the bar, Victor leaned in close to one of his men, smirking. They finally know she trusted me, he murmured. The henchman asked, doesn't that make you vulnerable? Victor's eyes gleamed cold. No, it makes them desperate. He swirled his drink slowly, voice low and venomous. Desperation makes people sloppy. His sinister calm revealed the predator who had been pulling strings from the beginning. For him, exposure was not a threat, it was a weapon. The game was far from over. Victor Kane smiled thinly, whispering, now they'll chase shadows while I bury the truth deeper. The predator's confidence made the looming confrontation inevitable. Back at the station, Michael's frustration cracked. He slammed his hand on the evidence board, sending pins scattering. "He's playing us, Sarah. Every clue is a damn illusion." Sarah stepped forward, voice raw with emotion. "Then we stop reacting to him. We take control." Michael's breathing was ragged, his eyes bloodshot with exhaustion. "He wants us chasing ghosts while he hides in plain sight." Sarah's grip on his arm steadied him. "Then we turn the game against him." Michael stared at her, his voice trembling between fury and resolve. "If we fail, Sarah, more blood will stain these walls." Silence lingered before Sarah whispered, "Then we can't fail." The storm raged as Michael and Sarah pulled up to the abandoned factory. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the broken windows. Michael said, "This is where he wants us." Sarah's voice trembled, but held steady resolve. "Then this is where it ends." The heavy iron door creaked as they forced it open, the darkness inside swallowing them whole. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of dread. Michael's gun was steady in his hand, but his pulse betrayed him. "Stay close," he whispered, eyes darting through shadows. Sarah's grip on the flashlight tightened, her jaw clenched. The factory felt alive, its rusted machines groaning in the wind. Somewhere inside, Victor Kane was waiting, and they both knew the hunt had reached its final chapter. Inside the factory, the silence was suffocating. Michael's footsteps crunched on shattered glass. "He's been here," he muttered. Sarah swung the flashlight across rusted beams, revealing streaks of red on the floor. "Blood," she whispered. Michael crouched, tracing the marks with gloved fingers. "Fresh. He's close." The sound of dripping water echoed like a metronome, counting down their time. Sarah's breathing quickened as she scanned the catwalks above. "What if he's watching us right now?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Then he knows I'm ready." The darkness pressed closer, every corner a threat. The hunt had shifted. No longer were they searching for Victor. They were walking into the predator's lair. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the upper level. Michael aimed his gun, shouting, "Victor!" His voice thundered through the hollow chamber. A low laugh echoed, chilling. Victor Kane's voice carried down, "You think you're hunters? You've been my prey all along." Sarah raised her flashlight, catching a fleeting glimpse of Victor's sharp eyes and faint smirk. Her voice shook with rage. "You murdered Emily. You destroyed her family." Victor's tone was calm, cruel. "No, Sarah. Emily chose me. She trusted me more than she ever trusted you." The words cut deep, Sarah's tears glistening in the dim light. Michael growled, "Enough games, Victor. Tonight it ends." The predator and hunters finally stood face to face. The confrontation erupted. Victor darted across the catwalk, the metallic clang echoing. Michael fired, the bullet ricocheting off steel. Sarah shouted, "Michael, he's heading down." They rushed as Victor leapt from the stairs, landing with predator's grace. Michael swung his gun, but Victor lunged, knocking it away. The two men collided, fists striking with raw fury. Sarah screamed, raising the flashlight like a weapon, smashing it against Victor's arm. He growled, shoving her back, but she stood her ground. Michael roared, pinning Victor against the rusted wall, his voice a guttural snarl. "You don't get to control this anymore." The factory reverberated with the violence of truth finally unleashed. Victor struggled against Michael's grip, sneering, "You'll never prove it. I've erased everything." Michael's eyes blazed, his voice a razor's edge. "You erased Emily, but you didn't erase the truth." Sarah staggered forward, holding the torn diary page Laura had given her. She shouted, "This is her voice, Victor. This ends with her." Victor's smirk faltered, rage flashing across his face. Michael slammed him harder against the wall, growling, "It's over!" Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. For the first time, fear flickered in Victor's cold eyes. The predator was cornered, his empire of lies collapsing. Michael whispered, breath ragged, "Emily gets justice tonight." The sirens wailed louder as uniformed officers stormed the factory floor. Michael's grip on Victor finally loosened when two officers dragged the criminal away in handcuffs. Victor hissed, "You'll never prove a thing," but the tremor in his voice betrayed the crumbling facade. Sarah stood beside Michael, her body trembling, the diary page still clutched tightly in her hand. The rain outside seeped through cracks in the roof, dripping steadily, mixing with the dirt and blood on the floor. Michael whispered, "Justice doesn't always come clean, but it comes." Sarah turned to him, her eyes swollen from tears, whispering, "Emily will rest tonight." Victor's muffled protests faded as he was shoved into the back of a squad car. The storm began to quiet, but the echo of the night's violence lingered in every breath, in every shadow, in every heartbeat refusing to forget. At the police station, the weight of the case pressed heavily in the debrief room. Chief Roberts stood with arms folded, his voice gravelly. "You pushed too far, Harris, but you brought him in." Michael's expression was hollow, his voice muted. "Bringing him in doesn't undo what he's done." Sarah sat silently, her hands trembling in her lap, clutching Emily's diary as though it were sacred. Robert's gaze softened briefly before hardening again. "The trial will be long, messy. His lies are deep," Michael replied flatly. "We've walked through his lies already. Now the world will." Sarah finally spoke, her tone quiet yet fierce. "Emily's voice will not be silenced again." The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, sterile and cold, yet even here, hope cracked through the despair like a fragile flame refusing to die. Later that night, Michael sat alone in his office, staring at Emily's smiling photo pinned to the evidence board. His eyes were tired, his hands stained with the weight of years of chasing ghosts. He whispered, "We got him, Emily. But why does it feel like we lost anyway?" The silence pressed heavy, the ticking clock on the wall louder than his breath. The whiskey bottle stood unopened, a silent temptation of surrender. Michael leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply, as though releasing years of unspoken grief. A knock at the door broke the stillness. Sarah entered quietly, her voice soft. "You can't carry her memory as a wound forever." He looked at her, his voice cracked but firm. "Then what else can I do?" Sarah stepped closer, whispering, "You carry it as proof that truth matters." For the first time Michael's eyes softened, a spark of peace glimmering beneath the exhaustion. The courtroom overflowed with tension. Weeks later, reporters filled the benches, cameras flashing as Victor Kane was led in, shackled, his smirk gone. Sarah sat in the front row clutching Emily's photo, her expression hardened with resolve. Michael stood behind her, his presence a wall of strength. The judge entered, and silence swallowed the room. The prosecutor's voice rang out, "The lies end here." Victor's eyes darted across the room, but for the first time no one flinched under his stare. Sarah whispered under her breath, "This is for you, Emily." Michael's hand touched her shoulder gently, grounding her as the trial began. The weight of truth filled the air heavier than any chain, and for the first time, the scales of justice tipped toward balance. When the trial ended, the guilty verdict rang like thunder. Sarah stepped outside the courthouse, the crisp morning air biting her cheeks. She looked skyward, whispering, "Emily, you're free now." Tears glistened, but her shoulders carried newfound strength. Michael joined her, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. He exhaled, whispering, "The monsters never disappear, but this one won't hurt anyone again." Sarah turned to him, her voice soft but unwavering. "We carry the scars, Michael, but we also carry the truth." The courthouse doors closed behind them with a heavy thud, sealing the chapter in stone. The camera lingered on Emily's photo in Sarah's hand before fading to black, the sound of a door slamming echoing like justice delivered, and like a ghost finally set free.